Right, we are live.
Welcome in to Out of the Parks with Jon Marks. I'm your co-host, Sam Stafford, alongside, of course, Jon Marks and the one, the only Maniac Malloy. Guys, we're going to get right into it. Philadelphia Phillies kicking off against St. Louis, wrapping up the series today at 1:15. So we have just a little over an hour. But before we get into that, what have you guys seen throughout this past weekend with the Nats and the Cardinals to this point?
Well, all right, I'm gonna make sure my shirt's buttoned here. I gotta remain buttoned up. Outside of it's still early in the season, it is still early in the season. They're 11 games in, they're 5-6. It's been a disappointing start. It really has. You've gotten really good starting pitching. The bullpen's been pretty good, but the bread and butter of this team, the lineup, has been really disappointing. You look at runners in scoring position, you look at strikeouts, you look at all the different things that the Phillies, when they're struggling, that we see them struggle with before, they're doing it right now. Near the bottom of the league in runners in scoring position, third from the bottom with bad teams. They're better than this. They'll perform better than this. But when we're talking about we want this team to compete with the Braves and win 95 games and really have home field advantage when it comes to the playoffs, and we're a long way away from that, you want to start off hot. You want to start off with one of these series, 15-5, 13-4, whatever it is. Through 11 games, you're under 500. So it's not an alarm for the season for sure, but it kind of tells you that this team, what we've seen the previous 2 years, this is really what this team is. They're imperfect. The thing you worry about, at least what I'm worrying about right now, and Castellanos is hot, and we'll talk about him for a second. He's hot, then he's cold, and he's really cold, then he gets hot again. Bryce Harper looks injured already. We're 11 games in. On the double play last night that he hit into, he wasn't really coming down the line all that hard. And I don't think that's because he was mad. I think it's because the back is hurt and he maybe is already really sore. So not going to go crazy. Sam's going to tell me it's a long season. We're 11 games in, and it's true. The Phillies are going to be fine. They're going to make the playoffs, I hope. But as far as so far, not a great start to the season, and it's annoying. So let's hope that they can beat the Cardinals today. They wrap up the series. They win another series, and then they head home for the Pirates coming up here over the weekend, and they get rolling a little bit. But if you're in the market for this team winning the NL East, as a lot of people were, you can see why that's going to be a really difficult climb this year.
We'll hit on it later. We might have a little string of luck there with the NL East, but like I said, we'll get to that later. But talking about this lineup, you already said the back injury with Bryce. And last night we saw 13 strikeouts. 7 of them came from the 3 and 4 hitters, mostly JT and Bryce Harper. But that's one of the things. You almost have that confidence they're coming back. But with that back injury, kinds of might shake some up. How much confidence do you have that this team will get rolling sooner than later?
Yeah, when you look at the beginning of the season, and in particular, we heard this debate last week when we were watching all those Phillies games that were in the rain and the cold, and it's like, well, why are you playing baseball in the Northeast at the end of March and early April? The weather is not suited for smashing the ball. It's not suited for hitting home runs out of the park all over the place, right? Like, this really is to the pitcher's advantage, and the Phillies starting pitching has been very good. And that's another thing that's disappointing is you've seen really good Zach Wheeler and you have 0 wins to show for in those games. They'll come around. I don't have any doubt about that. These are really good seasoned veteran hitters. They'll come around. But again, if you're in line for, hey, we're going to be the best team in baseball, we're going to be one of the best teams in baseball, I think you can see why I was skeptical that they were going to be able to really compete with the Braves this year to win the NL East.
Yeah, and even bringing up the Braves, they've had the same exact starting 5 in their lineup every single game so far this season. So that's something that the Phillies don't have the advantage of. But looking at their lineup again, we have Rojas and Castellanos, who keep holding us on every time that we want to moan and complain and all of that. They do something that pulls you in. Who are you more disappointed in between those two?
Man, Castellanos drives you crazy because when he's bad, he's really bad, right? Like,
really.
And unfortunately, we saw it last year in the playoffs too. You remember in that series, he was putting up historic numbers, and then like that, he went ice cold.
Yep, dropped off.
So he really is, and you see this with baseball, it is such a mental game. And when guys are swimming in their own head, they're out there swinging at everything, right? You even see it with Bryce from time to time where he goes cold. He's constantly tinkering and tweaking his swing to try to get back to where he is. So at some point, Castellanos is going to get to the good Castellanos. But man, when he's bad Castellanos, he is bad Castellanos. Rojas impressed me. He's impressed me because his start to the season, I think last week when we had a show last week, I didn't even have a hit last week. So the fact that he's turned it around a little bit, he's played really well. In the game the other night, he actually had, what did he have? 3 hits? Yeah, he had 3 hits. So he's turned it around. It's less pressure and stress on Rojas because all he really has to do is play great defense, use his speed, and not be a total pit at the bottom of the lineup. Castellanos being the right-handed bat, the really predominant right-handed power bat in the lineup. Bone, they play down a little bit more. With Rhys Hoskins not being here, especially for the future, when they bring in a left-handed reliever or when they have that left-handed starting pitcher, Castellanos needs to make them pay in those situations. That's how you're going to win. That's how you're going to protect Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. So Castellanos, when he goes cold, and he's maddening. So right now, Castellanos is going to have a much bigger impact on this lineup than Rojas is.
Now we have Maniac Malloy on location. And he's got a theory, a little trade theory with Castellanos. So, Maniac, what is it?
We need Mike Trout on this team. and that's just the bottom line here. I'm here out in St. Louis. The weather is, contrary to popular belief, it's actually pretty nice. And I think we're going to get some baseball in this afternoon. John, you are sympathizing with Johan Blojas. That's his name. He stinks. He absolutely stinks. Okay? I don't know how much longer this experiment's going to go on. One game where you get 3 hits is not enough. And the one was a dang cue shot, like Topper said in his post, that he wasn't even that impressed about. They asked him if he was more impressed about the ball he hit in the gap or the ball he hit to right field. He said that, well, that was really just a cue shot. So I am not ready, even though he does have a higher batting average than Nick Castellanos right now. I am not ready to lay off of this man. I really think that we go as far as the bottom of this lineup goes. And right now, Brandon Marsh, he is a dude. A dude's a dude. I mean, he can hit, and he's looking really good right now. The biggest thing is I really want this bottom of the lineup to not be just automatic outs, because you saw in the series against the Diamondbacks, what they do is they'll pitch around Schwarber, they'll pitch around Harper, and they'll try to feast off of these guys at the bottom of the lineup. And when you have an automatic out in your lineup day in and day out, like Johan Rojas is right now, you're not going anywhere, because teams like the Braves, teams like the Dodgers, they don't have a hole in their lineup, not to mention with Castellanos and his streaky hitting. But let's get back to my trade theory. Can we please get Mike Trout in a Phillies uniform, bring him home, and shore up this lineup with a right-handed bat that we don't have to worry about going hot or cold? You know, with Mike Trout, what you're going to get. And that's the bottom line, and that's what I'm saying.
Hashtag ask out Trout, because that's what it's going to take, Maniac Malloy. And by the way, if Mike Trout wanted to be in Philadelphia right now, he'd be in Philadelphia right now. He doesn't want to play in Philadelphia. He wants to be able to go to a Starbucks in Anaheim and have his cold brew, whatever, and not be noticed, because nobody cares. He comes to Philadelphia. He's not going to be able to live that kind of lifestyle. So as much as we can all fantasize about Mike Trout coming back to Philadelphia and finishing his career in Philadelphia, and he's still a very good player, I'm not telling you that I wouldn't like Mike Trout. We have to get back to reality, which is the players that are on this team are going to be the players that win or lose this. If they can trade for Mike Trout, if he actually has the balls to say, hey, I want to go back to Philadelphia, I'm all for it, right? He hasn't done that so far. And something you said, Maniac Malloy, right there, where you said that this team more or less lives or dies with the bottom of the lineup. What are you talking about? Look at their roster. Look at their payroll. The guys that need to carry this lineup, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, these are the guys that are going to carry this lineup. You can't have a hole at the bottom of the lineup. I'm not saying that, but if these guys are stepping up at the top of the lineup, we're not talking about Johan Rojas right now. All right, so they need to step up, and then Rojas is going to be okay, and we won't worry about it. But don't have a AAA death march on Rojas, and that's where you're going, and that's what I'm trying to stop. He doesn't have to go to AAA, Maniac Malloy.
Oh, well, if he goes to AAA, he's done. I understand that. And speaking of which, that's a good transition into the situation that we have with Spencer Turnbull. You know, we got to give him his flowers. Unbelievable start to the season for Spencer and a 0 ERA, which nobody saw that coming from our 5th starter. Now, what are we going to do, John, when it comes to Taijuan Walker, who just starts a rehab start, I think, today, right? Mark, is that the case? Thursday, you know, we got potentially an issue here with having 6 starting pitchers. What are they going to do? Because you can't send Spencer to AAA. He's not pitching in Lehigh Valley. What are you going to do, John?
Well, I mean, you slow play it as long as you can. And Taijuan Walker, I don't know how many rehab starts that they can make him take. You make him take those rehab starts. And if Spencer Turnbull turns into maybe the guy a lot of people thought he was going to be, then the situation takes care of itself. Otherwise, to your point, Maniac Malloy, if Turnbull continues to pitch like this, there's a 0% chance they should take him out of the rotation. If that means that Taijuan Walker becomes the long guy and he comes out of the bullpen and he's not happy about it, I don't care, right? It's what's best for the team right now. You may even see them go to a potentially a 6-man rotation, which I'm not exactly all for. And I understand why Taijuan Walker would maybe get the spot in the rotation, or you would try to do a 6-man rotation. He's making upwards of $17 or $18 million a year. Horrible signing by Dave Dombrowski, by the way. And he's already shown that he's not going to be happy. He was unhappy in the playoffs last year that he wasn't in the rotation. But sometimes when you're on a team that is more or less World Series or bust, and that's where this Phillies team is right now, you have to make difficult decisions. And I don't consider a difficult decision not putting Taijuan Walker back in that starting rotation, especially if guys below him are pitching better or other guys are pitching better. And we'll see what happens with Chris Sanchez, right? He looked really good last year. Not so much this year, right? Like you go from year 1 to year 2, maybe you don't have the same kind of stuff. Guys are sitting on that changeup. He's not commanding the fastball as he was last year. So sometimes these situations work themselves out on their own, and maybe that's what happens here. But I'm not putting Taijuan Walker back in the rotation just because his paycheck says that he's a starter.
I have a hypothetical here. So Chris Sanchez, obviously, if you did have to remove somebody from this rotation right now, it most likely would be him. What is the possibility that we could see Walker kind of take his spot, or Turnbull go up to 4, Walker come into 5, and then Sanchez go to mid relief?
Yeah, I think you could see it. I like that you have the lefty in the starting rotation. Again, I think it's going to depend on Sanchez pitches, but he's shown some versatility to where he could be a guy that comes in and pitches multiple innings for you. Maybe he even pitches the 7th inning. A lot of times with the bullpen and now even the starting rotation, it takes time to where guys figure out their roles, and it happens naturally. As much as you want to plug a guy into the 7th inning, we're going to talk about a closer coming up here in a second, but sometimes it takes some time to actually develop a lineup or develop a bullpen rotation or a starting rotation. So, but Sanchez could be the odd man out. He just looked so good last year, and you don't want him to be the Bailey Falter of the Phillies this year.
We will see this week.
We will. Falter showed a lot of promise, and then the next year he wasn't the same pitcher. Could that happen to Chris Sanchez? Absolutely, could happen to Chris Sanchez. But again, I'm not putting Taijuan Walker back in the starting rotation just because he was paid to be the starter. He needs to have earned that job. And between last year and what you saw in spring training, he hasn't done that for me.
Okay, so you mentioned the closer. We don't have one officially yet. It does take some time. We've seen Topper kind of have more of an analytical take on that so far. Who do you think ultimately will be this team's closer? We do have Kerkering potentially, if everything goes well, coming back the end of this weekend. How is that going to shake things up as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't make Kerkering the closer at all. I think that you're going to see, for the most part, Alvarado maybe get the most opportunities to close. But sometimes you want to put Alvarado out there in the 8th inning. And I would love to have a closer. I would love to be able to set up your bullpen and say, that's the 7th inning guy. That's your other 7th inning guy. There's your lefty out of the bullpen. He's your 8. He's your 8. He's your 9. I just don't see that with this bullpen. And you know what? That can be okay. That's okay. But Topper has shown that he likes to mix and match, and he likes to go with the hot hand. The problem is when these guys aren't pitching well, as we saw last year in the playoffs, then what do? It's always nice to have that closer. And last year you had a closer. You just didn't want him to be your closer in the playoffs. So I don't think that we're going to know who the closer is. And then over the course of the season, maybe a guy actually develops into that guy, a lot like they had last year with Kimbrel. But to start the season, I think it's going to be Alvarado. And then from there, you may have a bullpen by committee. Here's one guy I don't want closing the 9th inning. Sir Anthony Dominguez. He scares the hell out of me, and he hasn't pitched well again this year.
I know who the closer is going to be, John. And I'm out here. I just took a jet out to Anaheim here. I'm out in center field. I'm asking out Trout, by the way. I'll get back to you on what he says. It's still early here in the morning.
He's in a Starbucks. Just go to the Starbucks.
I know who the closer is, and he's on the roster. And this is the biggest problem, is that you need somebody, like you said, that knows how to be a closer and that has done it in the past. And he is on the roster, and his name is Gregory Soto, Sir Gregory. And he bailed you out. He bailed out Jeff Hoffman the other game, the first game of the season against the Cardinals. That's your guy. You see what happens when you throw somebody in there, and I know he's got to get his feet wet and he's got to get experience doing it. And I think that might be what they were trying to do with throwing Jeff Hoffman in the game, but it's a whole different ball game when you come in to close down the 9th, and you've been, coming in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, and then that 9th inning is a whole nother animal, and you need somebody with experience. And there is a guy on this roster who we're paying a lot of money, and his name is Gregory Soto. And that's who I want to see step up and step into this role. That's why we let Kimbrel go. And I think that he's somebody that we can really rely on. And I want to see him pitch today, and I want to see him close the game. That's my prediction for the day. 1 save for Gregory Soto.
John, before we get your take on this, my thing with Soto, I know Pat's gun-ho on him and everything, but in my opinion, Sir Anthony, you don't have that confidence. I don't have that confidence in Soto. I know Pat does, at least to this point. My thing is, we saw him in his last outing Monday or Tuesday, one of those. No, yesterday was Tuesday, so Monday. And we saw him. He did eventually get out of it, but that wasn't without letting some guys on base. And that
wasn't a clean inning, to your point.
Exactly. And to me, your closer, that's not giving me confidence to go out and shut it out. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I mean, I wanted to, because this is going to be Maniac Malloy's thing with Greg Soto, because he's been talking about it all leading up to the start of the regular season, and Soto looked good. It wasn't a clean inning, but sometimes with these closers, you're not going to get clean innings. I think Soto is definitely somebody that you can look and say, all right, he can be our guy. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think he's going to be the guy until they actually figure that out. The good thing is they have 2 lefties that throw smoke, that throw 100 miles an hour out of the bullpen. With Kerkering, we talked about Kerkering earlier. I really don't want to force him into a position where we know he has this great stuff. We know he has swing and miss. He's got the curveball. He's got the slider. He's got great velocity. But also, let's let him get comfortable before we want to anoint him to be the closer and put him out there all the time. So, again, you have a lot of power arms at the back of the bullpen, which is great. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time to see who the closer is. And as far as the role of the closer, some guys are suited to pitch the 7th or 8th inning. Because as Maniac Malloy said, and I remember talking to Larry Anderson about this on countless occasions, actually with Hector Neris. Hector Neris in the 9th inning could look like a different Hector Neris than in the 8th inning. There's nobody after you in the 9th inning. It's you. You determine whether the game's won or lost. You're blowing a save or you're not blowing a save. I don't know if Jeff Hoffman's meant to do that. So he may be better suited for the 8th inning. We're going to find out who's best suited for the 9th inning. And right now, maybe it's Soto, maybe it's Alvarado, but we're going to find out.
And that's one thing that we'll talk about later, or as the season goes on, is just how mentally it can affect you when you have a bullpen by committee. It might be easier to name that closer earlier in the season and kind of just get into a rhythm. I do want to note before we move on that Kerkering and Walker are actually, instead of Lehigh, they're switching on to start their rehab in High A, Clearwater, just because of weather. So that's interesting to look at. Kerkering,
get them really good and tuned up, buzzing, throwing some gas to some guys in High A. What the hell is that? That's all right. Go ahead.
High A is one of the harder pitching leagues, actually. You do see some interesting stuff there, just more so because everybody has power, but not so much control on that.
But it's also like getting their arms ready.
Yeah.
It's less about the competition. In a perfect world, I think, you'd rather have them going against the major league type players, but.
Yeah, Kerkering is still expected to be back later this weekend. So talking about this weekend, we have the Pirates coming into town, Keystone Show out right there. One of the hottest teams in the league again this year. To this point, any series predictions?
Yeah, they better win 3 or 4. And I know the Pirates have been very good, and maybe it's a little bit different than last year, but you start the season off 5-6. This team traditionally has been very good at home. So let's do it. It's a weekend series. You're going to have bigger crowds down there. The weather's going to be a little bit nicer, or at least it's going to be a little bit warmer. You're not going to be playing games in the 40s and the 50s. So it's time for these bats to get unleashed and do it at home. And let's give the fans some confidence and something good to feel good about with the Phillies. Because we talked about this in last week's show. It was a little bit of a tough start to the season, and I saw a ton of negativity out there from Phillies fans that said to me, but it's another slow start. I didn't want another slow start. They've done this in previous years. Let's get off the schneid. Let's get this offense going. And so I Maniac Malloy, if I don't get 3 or 4 this weekend, I'm going to be very upset. I need 3 or 4.
Well, if I don't get 1 of 1 against Bailey Falter coming to town on Friday, he's fitting right into one of my betting models, which is to bet against any former Phillies pitcher that absolutely was hot garbage in the city of Philadelphia. So you fade those pitchers every time they pitch, including Cole Irvin today against the Red Sox. There's a little pitch for you. There's a little pick for you. But yeah, you got to start off against Bailey Falter and just absolutely rip him. Get into their bullpen. They've had some really bad issues with their closer, the hometown guy, David Bednar. He got booed off of the mound yesterday. It was his 3rd blown save of the season. So they have issues at the end of their rotation here, at the end of their bullpen. And I think that the Phillies, they should be able to take 3 or 4 at least, especially Friday. You got to take Friday's game and set the tone early. They do have some good arms of the Pirates, and they are red hot. So we'll see what happens. I think they'll take 3 out of 4.
Right there. But we are going to give baseball a little bit of a break. We'll come back to MLB news in a second. But for now, this is a baseball show, like we said, but we'll get back to it. There's been a ton of fun things going on in the world that I want to get your guys' opinion. So in or out on the eclipse that happened on Monday? Were you guys excited for it? Did you participate?
Man, I couldn't have been more excited. We had the glasses. My wife's friend's a librarian, and she brought over like 50 glasses. I was distributing them to the neighbors. I was putting them in the mailbox so people could grab them. And then
you're like the Eclipse glasses fairy, Mark.
I could have used you, by the way.
I know. I felt like I'd helped the community so people didn't have to go out and buy it. They're like, thank you so much. And it was like they were messaging me being like, I'll take 4. So now I'm back out there with the storage bag with 4 and put their name on it or whatever. And then it got cloudy. So I don't know where it was with where you guys were, but it got cloudy. It was really, really cool. And then like 30 minutes before totality, I couldn't see anything. I missed the whole thing. So I'm out on the eclipse. It was one of the more disappointing things of recent memory. I couldn't see it.
I'm out on the eclipse. It wasn't a complete totality either. It was about 90%. It didn't even really get dark. My dog didn't freak out. Like they said, the animals were going to have an event of some sort. I didn't see any of that. Not mind blown. Was very excited and very let down. I'm out on the eclipse.
I agree with you guys, but I do want to point out one thing. That was Monday. What else happened Monday? Johan Rojas going 3 for 4. So we'll see if it happens again.
Great point.
That'll probably be the next time he has a 3-hit game is in the next solar eclipse, which is 2045 years. Or whatever it is.
Yeah, 20
there we go. We'll have to keep a tab on that to go back and look. Now, WrestleMania, huge. I know how I feel. I think most of social media knows how I feel, and you can tell just by how I'm talking. What about you guys? Were you in or out? Oh, and also, look at the can.
Look at that.
I bought it specifically because of the WWE.
You are feeling it.
Yeah, I hate to be out again, but
wow.
I'm out. My Uncle Jamie was down on Saturday to WrestleMania, and I'm like, how was it? He was like, and he's not even like, he doesn't watch modern day wrestling, but I guess that's not what it was about. It was just kind of one of these cultural things where you go down and people are dressed up like WWE superstars of past or present or whatever. I couldn't have less of an interest in what was going on down there. So I am out on WrestleMania.
I am absolutely in on WrestleMania. I haven't watched wrestling since I was probably about 13 years old. Used to be a big SmackDown guy. that was truly awesome. I tuned in just a little bit. I didn't watch all 5-6 hours of it on both nights, Saturday and Sunday, but I tuned in just in time to see these masked men in Eagles themed luchador masks coming into the ring. And I knew right away who they were. I could tell by their physique. I could tell by their bodies that it was Lane Johnson and none other than Jason Kelce. And I was freaking out. You know, you were looking for him to make an appearance there. And I was very excited to see Kelce's finale, his final act at the Link, be at WrestleMania. That was truly awesome. Plus, you know, who doesn't love a good choke slam from The Undertaker? That was really that just set it off for me. So overall, I am in on WrestleMania. Now my phone, my algorithm is inundated with wrestling.
Videos.
Yeah, wrestling stuff.
I think that's what makes it so fun is the nostalgia of it. Obviously, like you see The Undertaker, The Rock, everybody from when we were younger, and that's what makes it fun. I don't really watch anymore, but WrestleMania coming to town, it made you relive that.
Yeah.
So I think that's
I do like the algorithm sending me Liv Morgan, one of the female wrestlers. She's
Not
very
familiar.
nice. Yeah, she's very nice.
And
She's a good wrestler.
Sam pointed out off the air. How about Jason Kelce going over the top rope, jumping over the top rope?
The athleticism,
It's
like
unbelievable.
seamless. He just like, I mean, he definitely had adrenaline pumping through him, but it was insane. And then you had Lane, bigger body, had to.
I will
kind of
Over the
criticize.
top rope.
I will criticize Lane because like you watch all the other wrestling matches and everybody's like such a good actor. I think. I mean, I know it's like kind of corny at times, but like the acting is to be able to do that for that long and keep character is pretty amazing. Lane Johnson was fanboying though. He broke character. He's in there just cheesing away as if he didn't just beat the crap out of some guy to help Rey Mysterio win.
He was so happy to be there.
He
You're
was
right.
happy to be there. He kind of broke character. I'm sure the WWE people were like, dude, what the hell, man?
Yeah, he's known Stone Cold fanatic. So he's probably a little disappointed that it wasn't the glass shatter and it was the bell instead. Okay, so Friday before the weekend, everybody's just chilling. You know, it's Friday, you got WrestleMania, and all of a sudden you get this little vibration. I don't know if you guys felt it, but I was like, is there like a semi-truck in my neighborhood? And then it just kind of kept going and kept lingering and got a little more intense. And I was like, I think that's an earthquake. Did you guys feel it?
No, I'm out on the earthquake. I
didn't
didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I got it. I was actually on the phone with I was like a doctor's office or something. I was waiting on hold forever to schedule an appointment, and my mom's calling me. So I'm like, I'm not losing my place in line. So I ended I sent it to voicemail, and she texted me, "Did you feel that? I think it was an earthquake." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't feel anything." Then my wife is calling me like, "Oh my God, there was an earthquake," because she was somewhere. There's an earthquake. Why did I not feel it? I'm in Collegeville. I'm not in Pittsburgh. Everybody, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. My daughter didn't feel it. We didn't feel it. I don't know what happened. I'm out. I didn't feel it.
Wow. Didn't feel it.
Did you feel it, Maniac?
I felt it. I felt it, and I was very excited. I knew exactly at the moment that it was, and then I got a text message from the guy that I coach baseball with, and he said, "Yo, did you just feel that earthquake?" And yeah, I was very excited because when I felt the house start to shake, I kind of had a flashback to the last earthquake, which I was on the commode for, and I remember shaking on the toilet. So this was a little different. I was in my computer chair for this one. Not as exciting, not as a thrilling of an experience, but nonetheless, I am in on the earthquake. Don't want more earthquakes, but definitely in on the excitement of the earthquake.
I just feel left out.
Yeah.
That's why you're out.
I wasn't on the air.
You're out on all these things, but you're in on Johan Rojas.
That's odd.
Blowing my mind right now.
But I wasn't. You know what it was? I because I'm not on the radio anymore. I wasn't on the air for it, and I couldn't live react to it. Last time there was an earthquake, I was on the air for it, and it was like, we just had an earthquake. I'm live on the air. I didn't even feel it this time.
It just sounds like you had a terrible weekend. So hopefully this turns it around and you're in on this one. What about the Sixers? 10-9-8, baby. In or out?
In the playoff, they're going to have a play-in game. I think they have to win the rest of their games to make it. You know what? It's a damn shame because if Embiid didn't get injured, we'd be feeling differently about this team. And honestly, they're dangerous. They're dangerous, but it just makes that climb that much more difficult. unless you want to be a glass half full guy, which it's hard for me to get there, maybe the extra games that they need to play, it gives Embiid some more games to kind of get back in the swing of things. Not that he hasn't played great, because he's played great. They're dangerous. I'll say this, that there's no team in the East that wants to play the Sixers after winning a play-in series. I would love to see the Bucks and the Sixers in the first round.
You didn't make it clear. Is that an in or an out?
I'm out on the Sixers.
Again.
I am in. I am absolutely in on the 76ers, and here's why. Because if they get the 7th seed here and they win their playing games, they will play the Bucks.
They get Doc.
And they get Doc. It's a great storyline, as well as Giannis is hurt. Giannis has a calf injury. There were fears of possibly an Achilles. He's, survived that. It's not going to be an Achilles injury, but he may be out for that first series, potentially against the 76ers. You get through that series, anything can happen from there. I am absolutely in. And Tyrese Maxey, how can you not be in? As much as a guy who's, people have been hot or cold on whether or not he's truly a superstar player, he's really looked like a superstar the last couple of weeks, taking the team on his back. I can't wait to see what him and Embiid can do together. I'm absolutely in on the Sixers. No doubt about it. Not scared of the play-in. Bring on the Bucks, and they're going down.
You're in on what, though? What are you exactly saying? Because I can say I'm in on the Sixers. Of course, I want the Sixers to win. What are you in on?
I'm in.
Are they going to the? Are they going on the Eastern Conference Finals?
They are making a serious run. They're going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay,
that's what I'm in on. They absolutely are.
See,
I think it's like the perfect situation. All these last several seasons, you got Embiid, who's just like run down, beat to crap, limping into the playoffs. And no, I don't think that he's 100% healthy. You've kind of seen him twinge and move around a little bit. But I think what we're getting out of him now is almost better than we've got for the last several seasons. So it'd be great to finally see him at close to 90%, I'd say. And I think that's all you need out of this guy to be able to go further in the playoffs than we have. The only team that scares me just a little bit is the Celtics. I'm not scared of anybody else. I think if we play our game, Sixers are going to make a run all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think you just got to be in, but I'm hesitant. I know years past have made me hesitant, so I'm scared about that. But Eagles, last but not least, we knew they were starting their season in Brazil, and now it is officially confirmed that they will be playing the Green Bay Packers. They're opening as -1.5 point favorites. In or out?
On them winning the game? Oh boy. Well, I'll tell you this: there's no way in hell I'm going to see them play in Brazil. So I'd be out on that. I'll stay stateside and watch it on my couch. It's an
on Peacock.
It is on Peacock.
The Friday night game.
I'm out on that.
And by the way, I thought it was the Browns. The Browns were even talking about it being the Browns. There was personnel going on radio stations saying yeah, we're starting the season in Brazil.
Maybe it was that playoff game kind of switched it up because they looked good that last playoff game.
They did. Man, they got if this is going to be a good season, the Eagles need to win that first game. They need the bad taste was taken out of our mouth from the end of the regular season and then the playoffs by having a really good offseason so far. We'll see what happens in the draft. I have some confidence that Howie and the Eagles are going to do a good job in the draft. But you know what? All right, let's be half full. I'm in on the Eagles. I'm in on them winning this opening game. It's a little bit of a Packer line, Maniac Malloy. I'm not going to lie. 1.5 points is not a strong Eagle line.
Absolutely.
But I'll be in on the Eagles to start the season.
Absolutely an early Green Bay Packers line for sure. I'm out, though, on the Sixers. The Sixers. There I am. See, I'm so in on the Sixers. They're just on the top of my mind. I am out. On the Eagles playing in Brazil. Driving here today, I was thinking to myself, what would that be like going all the way to Brazil? And then I'm thinking to myself, all these different trips I've gone on to see the Eagles play at away games, and that feeling of just there's nothing worse than when you schedule a whole vacation around going to an Eagles game, an away game, and they lose. I mean, it's just like an L. You just take an absolute L. It's the first game of the season. I don't think it's as big as John you're making it out to be, but yes, they want to start the season off 1-0, get a win there. But man, I'm totally out on going to Brazil and the Eagles playing there. I mean, you give up a home game. it's not fair to the fans, I think. And, I'm definitely not traveling to Brazil and then walking back to my hotel room. It's going to cost me a fortune and crying in my bed, because that's just not good for business.
I agree with you guys. Well, I guess I should say with Maniac, because I'm out on this. I want to be in on the Eagles 100%, but I don't like that you'd have to travel to Brazil. Obviously, it's a home game and it's on Peacock. I don't like that. I'm so against putting it on streaming services. So unfortunately for now, and then also just the fact, like you guys even mentioning that it's a possibility of a loss, like I feel the weight on my chest already. And I guess we have to wait until after draft. Things will change, obviously. But right now, I cannot imagine starting the season with a loss after how last season ended.
It'd be tough. That's for sure.
Yeah. So hopefully the Phillies have us in a good spot at that point so that we don't have to be that nervous. But let's get back in to some baseball. Okay, so we kind of mentioned it earlier. The Braves, obviously, no worries in their lineup as of right now, but a huge hit to their starting rotation. Spencer Strider, I don't think it's been confirmed yet what has been wrong, but a UCL injury. Not clear if he needs Tommy John or if he's just going to have to wait months and months until it repairs itself, but not looking good. And then also Shane Bieber, UCL injury.
Man. Yeah, and Strider is when you go see the Tommy John doctor, a lot of times you end up having Tommy John. So regardless, if they decide they're not going to have surgery and they try to rest and rehab it, he's going to be out for a while. And I would think that if I was a betting man, without being a doctor and looking at any of his medicals, that it's going to be Tommy John. But to your point, Sam, a lot of pitchers already early on in the season, and you're seeing a lot of this going down with elbow injuries. So it's alarming. Hopefully it doesn't happen to anybody with the Phillies this year. But yeah, you're losing some big names to UCLs and possible Tommy Johns.
Yeah, so it's actually really interesting, and we're talking about this clip from Justin Verlander, who's recovering from a shoulder injury, but he's down in AAA for Houston right now, and we actually have the clip.
No, man.
So we'll play it. Just talking about the style.
I don't know, man. It's tough. I think the game has changed a lot. I think it'd be easiest to sit here and blame the pitch clock. I think in reality, you put everything together and everything has a little bit of influence. I think the biggest thing is the style of pitching has changed so much. Everybody's throwing as hard as they possibly can and spinning the ball as hard as they possibly can. And, it's hard to deny those results.
Yeah, we're going to go right to clip 2.
Pitching, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. It is what it is. I think the data's out there at this point. But when the balls started to change back in 2016 and they started flying out a bit more frequently, I know myself personally that started changing how I had to approach pitching. You have to start swinging and you have to start approaching the batter as I want swing and miss. I can't have him put the ball in play where the old adage, pitch down, pitch away from the guy, hit your spot, get weak contact early in the count, and then you can kind of go up. And that kind of went out the window when everybody started being able to leave the yard, especially opposite field. And look, like I said, I'm not here to. I've said my piece on that before in the past, and it is what it is. As long as we're all out here competing on an even playing field, that's what I care about, and we all have the same baseball in our hands, so that's that. But I do think that you throw that in the mix, and you throw analytics in the mix, and you throw the pitch clock in the mix, and it all kind of adds up.
Yeah, so it seems like all of that has been problems in the past, obviously, but then really with the pitch clock coming into effect last year, it's just kind of not giving them any rest, and it's made it even more of an emphasis. And then he also says at one point in there that people are starting out now. You don't have little league like you used to. You're going right in. You have to be great at 11 years old. You have to throw as hard as you can. And he even goes to mention a future Hall of Famer, Justin Verlander, says he didn't find his stuff and get into his rhythm and have power until college. So I think there's a lot into it. What do you really attribute it to?
Yeah, and Tony Clark, who is the Players Association president, he had come out and he had blamed the pitch clock and what Major League Baseball has done with the pitch clock for all of these early season and what we saw with the Tommy Johns. And I think it's very convenient and easy to blame a pitch clock when really Justin Verlander is saying there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, if you think about it and you're a 15 or a 16-year-old out there and you have obvious pro potential, you're being coached from an early age, not even a 15 or 16-year-old, but what are you aiming for? Velocity. Because guys get drafted in the minors, guys that get drafted high in the draft, guys that are going to college, they want you throwing in the 90s. And if you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old that's throwing in the 90s, mid 90s, like that's something that you're being coached to do. That's what you're building your elbow and your ligament up to do. So now you're throwing at a high velocity at a young age. So guess what happens 10 years into your career? Your elbow's done. So between velocity, between spin rates, between everything that these guys are throwing, hard sliders, cutters, everything has action. So you have the elbow ligament, I believe, just deteriorating because it's being used so much at a very young age. And you have the pitch clock, but you also have a lot of these pitchers now that you don't have the sticky stuff. And I've heard starting pitchers talk about this, that their arm feels differently now than it did before because you don't have the same, you're throwing, everything you're doing is differently. So you don't have whatever they were putting the substances to put on the ball. That's another facet to it. So I don't believe it's just the pitch clock. I believe the evolution of the pitcher, the starting pitcher, or even the relief pitcher, if you're not throwing in the mid to upper 90s, what are you really anymore? So the pitch clock is just a part of everything that's happening with Major League Baseball. And guess what? You're going to continue to have a rash of Tommy Johns as long as pitchers are pitching this hard with that much spin rate and with different baseballs too.
Before we get Maniac's point on it, I did hear from Corey Seidman, and this was interesting too about it. Back in 2002, the average fastball was 89.4 miles per hour. And little by little, every single year, the velocity has gone up and up and up all the way until 94 flat, I think in 2023 was the average fastball. So to your point, velocity and that spin rate, you said not having the sticky stuff, you're trying to use more arm to get the spin rate. So there is a lot on it. Maniac, what do you have?
I think it's the sticky stuff mostly. That's my biggest, thing to go off of. And I think of what Tyler Glasnow said when he was with the Rays, and he was the first one to really speak out about that. And I think that's more what could be, causing the injuries than the pitch clock. But I don't know. I mean, these pitchers are a bunch of babies too, so they like to complain a lot. So you never know what to really think when
complaining when their elbows hang
yeah,
in.
well, they do. They like to complain about everything and anything, but the balls too. I will say that. The thing is, I've heard Peter Fairbanks already this year for the Rays. He complained about baseballs in the 9th inning and that they weren't uniformed. I mean, what is that? That makes you wonder. That makes you think. And we had Judge's record-setting year for him. There were a controversy about these Goldilocks balls and not using the same balls. There is so many different baseballs going in and out of the game, throughout the game. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but between the sticky stuff and the balls not being uniformed, that I think could really mess you up. And then the fact that all these guys are getting up there to 100 miles an hour. I mean, it's like every single team almost has a dude at the back end of their bullpen that can throw 100 miles an hour, and it's all, popping up within the last several seasons. Back when Billy Wagner was doing it, it was just like truly unbelievable. That's what you would come to the ballpark to watch, this guy throw 100 miles an hour, and they would boo him if he would throw 99 and one pitch. So
now everybody has one of those guys for the most part.
Yeah.
And how do they get there? That's something that you need to look into, and you need to do studies on,
you're training for velocity. These guys aren't, when young pitchers aren't training to learn how to pitch, they're training to build their arm and their elbow up to where they're throwing at higher velocities. Guess what that does to the elbow ligament? You almost expect a young pitcher that's been coming up to, by the time he's in his mid-20s, to have some type of an elbow injury. Andrew Painter, you look at him, look at Sixto Sanchez, just some of the recent Phillies high-level prospects. It's also why it's so difficult when you're drafting or you're signing a young international pitcher. When they're 18 years old and they're throwing that hard, It's why you don't see a lot of high draft pick high school pitchers, because they don't develop. You don't know what you're getting. You're much better off drafting a college guy that's actually filled out and grown up a little bit.
Well, and to that point, it's also interesting how things might change because of NIL deals. Because before, you were seeing younger guys want to pitch hard because they did want to get drafted out of high school. Because if you were a pitcher getting drafted high out of high school, you were making money and you weren't able to in college.
Right.
So you wanted to be able to make money as long as you could because you weren't going to have that long of a career. Now with NIL, you do want to have a longer career. You can make just as much. You're going to make a lot more with NIL than you will in the minor leagues, making your way up. So that might be something that's really interesting and comes into effect. And with what Pat was saying too, just bringing in the balls and everything, this game, MLB is trying so hard to make it stay up and be an important sport and kind of go international with it. You're seeing all these advancements to the balls and to make the game more exciting and be explosive and all that. But it's really been everything in hitters' favor and not so much pitchers' favor. And we're seeing that with the injuries.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I would agree.
Okay, so we're going into rapid fire. It's kind of where we get Jon's final thoughts, but it's not the end of the show just yet. So don't worry. So we got a NOLA start today in about 30 minutes from now. Can he continue the strong performance based off of his second outing?
Well, I didn't actually see a strong performance out of his second outing. The overall line, and he was fine. The overall line was good, but he wasn't crisp. He didn't have a great command. I think it was more that he was facing the Nationals than anything else. But today, day game, this is really, even when it's the 12th game of the season, this is really when you want your starter, you want one of your ace starters like Aaron Nola to come out, and it can win you a series, and it kind of sets you feeling good about yourself coming home for a weekend series against the Pirates. So I am very skeptical of Aaron Nola coming out and having a good outing today. He just hasn't looked good so far this year. So I would say no, Aaron Nola, mediocre start. I don't think he's going to get blown up or anything today, but if you're looking for Aaron Nola to come out and give you 7 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, I don't think that's going to happen today.
Gonna need help from that lineup.
Listen. Lance Lynn is washed. That's who's pitching today for the Cardinals. I see a big game from Aaron Nola. I disagree totally. I thought he looked pretty good against the Nationals over the weekend. I think he's back on track after a tough start to the season with that first start. I think you're going to see a big bounce back from Aaron Nola today. Over-under is only about 5.5 for strikeouts. Give me the over on Aaron Nola strikeouts today against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think the Phillies are absolutely going to win this game. And yes, John, come back with a good taste in their mouth to play the Pirates.
All right.
Yeah, they need to win this game. So unfortunately, like we saw a lot last year, I think the lineup will come up for Nola instead of Wheeler. So that we will see in just due time. We talked about it earlier. Rojas, Castellanos. If you had to choose one to be an extreme worry throughout the season, who are you more worried about?
Well, it's got to be Castellanos for me, because he's not even penciled in. You have ink that has him not only in the lineup, but also he is your right-handed power bat. And I like Alec Boehm. He hits further down in the order. He's been a big RBI guy. But if you don't have a right-handed bat like Castellanos to make teams pay for bringing in a lefty that's going up against the, their left-handed batters, Castellanos has to make them pay. He's going to look good at times. He's not going to look good at times. Right now, he's in one of these spots, and I know he had 2 hits last night, but I'm more concerned about Nick Castellanos because you need him in the middle of that lineup. You need him to be a producer, and if he's inconsistent, it's going to kill the team.
Yeah, I think we're all right on board with you with that one. And moving on to Taijuan Walker, starts his rehab this week. Where does he fit in this starting rotation when he comes back?
Man, he fits like a round peg in a square hole. If you put him in the lineup, if you put him in the starting rotation right now, a lot of times when you get a starter that comes back, it's like, well, you need him anyway because you need a starter, and you have a Bailey Falter or somebody like that that's in the rotation that is only there out of desperation. But the way the Phillies are pitching right now, they don't necessarily need Taijuan Walker coming back. So it does put the Phillies in a tough position of you have a veteran free agent that you signed to a big money contract that hasn't performed, and now you have to put him in a rotation that guys are actually performing well. And it'd be easy to take a Spencer Turnbull and say, hey, we signed you to a 1-year contract. You don't have the big money free agent dollars that we gave to Taijuan Walker. I don't care. If he continues to pitch well, and talking about Turnbull, we'll see what Sanchez does at his next start. Like, I could go with the 6-man rotation before I'm putting Turnbull as a reliever. So Taijuan Walker is not guaranteed a spot in the rotation just because of his salary. He's going to have to earn it. And unless he looks really sharp at AAA in his rehab starts, and I would keep him down there as long as I possibly could, Taijuan Walker is not guaranteed a spot in the rotation for me.
Good problem to have. Okay, so that wraps up our rapid fire. Maniac, take us into your baseball trauma that happened this week.
Yeah, we had a start to the season, as you see on the screen. That's not Jose Altuve. That is in fact Finn Malloy, my son, and we started off the season with the Lenape Valley Spring Training Tournament this weekend. And if you go to the next picture, Finn got hit in the face by a ball. First game of the season, ball off the shoulder directly into the mush. He ate it like a champion. And
wow.
I mean,
all right.
He stepped right back in there, got a walk. Last night playing against 10-year-olds, got a hit. I got to give some props to my little guy there for taking one in the shot in the mush. And you could see if you zoom in there, you can even see the stitches if you look close.
You can see it.
Yeah, he's got a little Bryce Harper in him.
Wow.
Remember,
He took a look. I think I could spend an entire practice, the next practice, teaching the kids how to put on the catcher's gear properly, where the straps are not on the inside, where if you click them together, they come undone, and how to not get hit in the face by a ball. You always turn and show your numbers to the pitcher if you're afraid of possibly getting plunked. It's better to take one in the back or in the butt than it is to take one in the moneymaker. Yeah, you got to keep the moneymakers, clean. You got to keep the face clean, the hands clean, and you'll be all right. It might sting a little bit, but that's why we got ice.
So, quick question: was he crowding the plate? Was the pitcher trying to send a message to get him off the plate, or was this just an erratic starter?
Well, they're eight. So the control at this level is is not at a premium. So yeah, when you're stepping in the box, you got to
all right
be careful. You got to be ready to move at any given moment, because one might be right down the middle and the next one is about 15 feet over your head. So you never quite know. But you know what? I will commend him. Last night, stepped really close on the plate. I mean, you got to think he's only about 3'4". He's not that tall. So the bat is only, about 27 inches long. You got to be close to the plate to be able to cover up that outside strike. And we know at the little league level that strike zone's fairly big. So I will commend him. He stepped back in there last night, got a hit. So
there you go. You always got to get right back in there.
Got to learn it early.
Yeah, it is scary. I actually will never forget. I was younger. My brother got hit in the face, but he was playing shortstop. Bad hop.
Ugh.
Right into it, and he had perfect teeth. Poor guy.
Oh,
I know. And he always had a crossover tooth. He never got it fixed because he liked the story, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, you got to face the fears. Get back in there, man. Proud
Look
of
at
you,
this
Finn.
picture here, Sam.
Yeah. Moving on.
Her first appearance on the show. This is Marlo.
Yeah,
Marlo Stafford. She looks a little like me.
I know. That's why I took the picture. I actually sent it to Maniac because she got a little flow going and it's growing in just like Uncle Maniac over there.
Phillies mullet.
Yep.
It's the Phillies mullet. We're not ready to start the campaign yet, right, John?
No, at 5 and 6, it's hard to try to trumpet up people to grow or cut a mullet for the Phillies. We'll get there at some point. Once hitting season starts, we'll get there. But Maniac Malloy has the mullet. Young Stafford has the mullet. Now, if you have a mullet or you want to send us your Phillies mullet, by all means, send it to us on social media. But yes, it is a campaign. We're not starting it just yet, but thank you.
It is starting to brew, though, as you can see on the screen now. We've got one of our fans of the show, Mr. Matt Kavanaugh, who is donning a mullet there in the sun with some, I don't know if those are women's glasses or not, but we're not going to judge.
Sally, Jesse, Raphael would be proud of him, I think.
So, it's starting to gain a little bit of steam. It's nice to have me, Marlo, and I guess Matt as the founding members of this, and we'll monitor how this goes.
John, what would it take for the Phillies to get you to grow a Phillies mullet?
Wow. Well, I told Bryce Harper I would get his face tattooed on my back if they won the World Series. So, hey, listen, if we make the World Series, I'll grow it out in the back.
Nice.
And we can have a mullet.
Okay.
How about that?
I like
Okay.
it. I like
The
it. I'll
long
pull my
season. You
hair
better
up.
start soon.
I'm
Yeah.
not cutting anything.
No extensions too. No Dr. Glad.
No
here.
extensions?
No
Oh,
extensions.
damn.
You got to be for real.
I don't know. I might take
Sam,
the
you could do one
extensions.
tomorrow if you wanted to.
I'll do a faux
Okay.
mullet.
A
Yeah,
faux mo.
we're not
A
going to
faux
go
mo.
all the way. But now moving on to Jon Marks, Bets Maniac. Take it away.
Well, John,
Yeah.
we started off the season 0-2. We got the Out of the Parks segment of the show, as well as our happy hour boost, which you got to find on Fridays.
Yes.
Me and John put our heads together and we come up with a bet. We boost the odds at happy hour starting at 4:30, usually up until first pitch of the games on Friday night. You can find a boost. We took the Phillies on Friday, over runs. They had the bases loaded. Trey Turner could not come through, grounded into a double play, killed that bet. And last week, you went with your boy, who you're bullish on, Alec Boehm, to hit a home run down at Nationals Park. Did not come through for us. John, I got to ask you now, who are you going out of the parks with against the Pirates this weekend? Phillies, Pirates, go.
Well, I think it's actually unfair to say my bets are 0-2 because really the game should have went over. It wasn't my fault. They had the
Yeah, it's not
bases
your
loaded
fault.
early in the game. There's no way that game shouldn't have went over. They packed it in after they scored those early runs. What, they have 4 runs in the first couple innings? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, this game's going over. And actually, didn't I try to parlay Zach Wheeler strikeouts as well at some point? I don't know. I said that. He had the over in the strikeouts, but all right. So what are we doing this weekend? Here's what I know. That Bryce Harper is hot and he's cold. All right. And he grounded into that double play last night. So coming home this weekend, are we doing this weekend? Or are we doing
This
tonight?
weekend.
This weekend, go over on everything with Bryce Harper. He's going to come home. The weather's going to be all right. I know it's supposed to rain maybe on Friday or Thursday or Friday, but you look at those Saturday and Sunday games where you're going to get the big crowds. Bryce Harper knows what to do in front of the big crowds at home. Take Bryce Harper, look for the home runs, and I think he hits a couple of them this weekend.
Nice. I like it. I like it. And today, as always, every Wednesday, we've got a 25% live profit boost on the BetParks app for all MLB games. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. For me, I like to go ahead and fade former Phillies pitchers that stink. And I had Cole Irvin, going up against another former Philly pitcher, Nick Pivetta, who, like we said, is another guy going to the IL with a elbow strain.
Yeah.
Cole Irvin versus Cutter Crawford. Here's what you're going to do. You wait till this game starts. You wait until the Red Sox go 1, 2, 3 in the bottom of the first inning. Live bet the Red Sox to beat the Baltimore Orioles. Throw a 25% live profit boost on that and call me in the morning. That's my pick for the day on the 25% live profit boost.
Nice.
That's all we got for you from a betting standpoint. Do we have any questions?
Yes. So before we wrap it up, we have one question. Phillies are hitting less than 200 with runners in scoring position. To be exact, 191. So why is this the case in your eyes, and can it improve?
It better improve. But last year, if you look at where they were, I believe it was June 24th was the cutoff, and then they turned it around. They were maybe not equally, but they were bad with runners in scoring position. So if you look at past history, they struggle a little bit earlier in the season. And as the weather gets warmer, they pick it up a little bit. So at this point, I guess we got to try to ride this out and then get the bats going, and then you can surge in July. But I mean, I'm not looking for things to majorly change. I think we're going to see Phillies look better. You win 2 or 3, and then they lose 2 or 3 the next series. So kind of going back and forth right here. So I would expect these bats to continue to do what they're doing.
Okay, that wraps up show number 2 of Out of the Parks with Jon Marks. We'll be back next Wednesday. Check our social medias to see exactly what time for the live show. And thank you guys for sticking with us today. Phillies officially 15 minutes away from first pitch. We'll be watching with you guys. So check us out on social media.
Nick Castellanos today.